Hello and welcome to vlog number 45. If you're not yet a subscriber and you are enjoying my content, please do consider clicking that button. And if you already subscribe and have not yet, don't forget to ding the bell and select all so that whenever one of my videos goes live, you are told about it by YouTube, which happens eventually but not always very quickly. This week has been a busy week. It's been a busy week in real life and not a very busy week in hobbying. I've made progress on the Durin's doorway, but I haven't yet got to the glowing paint, so sorry if you're waiting for that, but I have made progress. And I've also actually one evening got to the painting desk, and so I put a bit of film of that on as well. But it's been a pretty quiet one, and so this should be a pretty short video, which I'm sure some of you will be happy about. But that's life. You do your hobby, it is only a hobby, this channel is only a hobby, and so it is what it is, and I'm very pleased to still be doing it and to have kept 45 weeks on the trot without a break. Anyway, I'll stop rambling now, and I'll see you again at the end, and I really do hope that you enjoy this video. And so we come to the next stage of this build. Now this really is stretching me. I'm really enjoying this. I'm learning a lot of stuff, like I did for actually doing the actual door. Let me start that again in case that crackled. Now we come to another interesting bit on this build. This build is really stretching me. I'm having to do a lot of new stuff, like doing the doorway, and now we're going to come to the holly bushes. Now I've been sat here the entire time looking at this, thinking that the holly bushes were flush, so they'd actually grown up almost like ivy and were crawling up the cliff face. And it's only just now I'm really starting to dig into it that I've looked deeply and I've realised that's just not the case. That's not what they are. They actually are growing somewhere out around here, and then they grow up and over above the doorway, and they might touch the cliff face, but they don't really touch it very much. So this means this does two things. First of all, I'm going to have to rethink the thoughts I had about just using air drying clay to sculpt on the tree, and secondly I might have to actually paint this at least basically before I do the trees so that I can get in and not damage any of the structure I do for the trees. But what I'm going to talk about now is my thoughts about how I'm going to do the trunk and the tree, and there have been a couple, and I've done a couple of revisions which I'll show you. First of all, I thought, you know what, let's just use some toilet rolls. But looking at it and looking at the proportions on my concept art that I'm building against, that's probably a bit thick, and the same goes for the kitchen rolls. They're the same dimensions and they're probably a bit thick. So what I then come down to is this, which is a smaller toilet kitchen roll. I think that might actually be from inside, like a cling film or something like that, I'm not sure. And the final remaining large dowel, which is a pain because I meant to order more of this and I forgot. So I would have used that. That would have probably been just about perfect, I think. So what I might do is do one with a dowel and one with this thin tube. And what I can do for that is I'll be able to bed them in. So put a little mound around it and stick them in with that, maybe with some PVA on the bottom. Once I've cut them to size, obviously, because they're not going to want to be that big, I'm going to want to bring them up and then they're going to start branching out. Probably just above the doorway, looking at the concept art, so just around the doorway they're going to start branching out and they won't need to be as long. So I could probably cut this in half and have half and half, but I quite like the idea of having slightly different sizes. And then I'll be able to bed them in with the mound of either Luke's modelling compound or air drying clay, and then do the sculpting of the roots and of the branches from there. The other thing that I'm probably going to end up doing is actually building the branches, building these when they're not actually stuck in place. So this does make me think that I'm going to paint the cliff next. I might even do that now, and then I'll be looking at using twisted wire and other things to do the branches and maybe even to do the roots, yeah, so I'll bring you along for that when I get to it. But I just wanted to share my thoughts, show you what I learned, and yeah, I will be back shortly on this build, I'm sure, with maybe some painting. So I have decided that I am going to put some paint on this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of my dark grey. I've just had a quick look again at the concept art, and it's a very light grey, the stone there. So if I start off with the darker grey that I use and paint that on thickly, and then I can highlight up from that using the progressively lighter greys and then onto white, then that will look correct. So we're just going to come along and with quite a wet brush, because this paint is now quite dry in the pot, I'm going to paint that all over. So I will pop some music on and you can watch this progress. Next job on this is the dry brush of the lighter grey, which I'm going to do using this brush, and I'm just going to do what I've started to do a little bit more, which is actually to take the worst of the paint or most of the paint off on the paint lid, which has been working really well for me recently. So we'll just put this over as a dry brush, and then we're going to be on to the complex bit, which is making the trees, which I have been thinking about. I have got ideas. I went out this morning and looked at what I think is a sagebrush, which has died in my garden, which I'm about to cut down and save all the bits for trees. But I couldn't see any in there that were a good proportion for this build. So it's going to be, I'm going to stick with what I said on my previous clip. You almost got me doing this, doing it with real trees, but I think I'm going to stick with what I said on the previous clip. So anyway, so we'll get this dry brushed. I'll stop talking now, put some music on, or skip ahead one or two, and then I'll bring you along once this is done and when I'm ready for the next step. I'm back in the painting room, which is an absolute pleasure. It's been a long time. I've taken a picture, which I'll flash up on screen to show my setup. I'm very pleased with this indeed. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the microphone off and paint away with the camera pointing and see what I get. What you can see is I have the miniature which I primed the last time I was in here. That is the mounted version of this particular bad boy, who is from my battle company. So my target is to get that done. I also have some priming to do, which I'm going to do with a brush, which is for another project that I'm working on. So I'll just get that done, and maybe I'll pick up some other things as well. But priority is just to get this one painted here. So yeah, let's get started. Okay then, so what we have is the two elements that I'm going to use to build the core of the trunks for these two holly bushes. And I've been looking a bit closer at the image that I'm working from. And it does strike me that by making this the same scale as my Gandalf figure that I had, I've maybe kind of shortchanged myself a little bit. What might have been a better idea would have been to have not worried about it being the same scale, 28mm, done the doorway bigger, made it easier for my carving, and then made the trees bigger, because right now this is going to be quite a yeah, it's going to be a bit odd, because the trees start to actually grow out only about yay high up this this dowel. And yeah, so it might be a better idea to just change my scale up, but I'm where I am, and I did it for a reason, because I wanted to be able to sit some miniatures on here and have that as part of the diorama. So it is what it is. What we're going to do now is we're going to start to measure up, cut and put in place. So as I say, I have worked out, looking at the image, where this should be, and it is going to start to actually branch out. That's where the branches begin. And on the other side they're a little bit higher, but that's where the branches are about to begin. So if we look at these, you can see where those marks are. There's a lot of not used, which is good, because this is the last of this down. I've got more on order, but it won't come for ages because of Corona. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those, and I'm going to then bring you along once I've done a little bit of experimenting and work out how I'm going to actually bush up the trees. My idea is to use potentially smaller gauge dowel as a core, so put that in there and then build around that with some twisted wire. That's the idea for that side. And this side, my idea is actually to cut and splay the cardboard a little bit, and then use twisted wire as well around those to build out the bush. So I have ideas. I'll bring you along as I get to them and show you how they work. But for now, yeah, it's good to be getting a little bit more progress. I've been very busy, so I've not been able to sit down at this for quite a long time. I've done some thinking, and I've realised that I just need to get stuck into this. I'm a little nervous about this task. I'm not 100% sure how it's going to work, but I have had some thoughts, and so I'm just going to give it a go. So as you can see, I've cut down my two lengths of material. So this is the balsa, and then here we have the inside roll from some kitchen roll, or maybe I don't know, tin foil. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to use twisted wire to build out the shape of a tree. So, and I've checked, and you can press the wire in nicely to certainly to the balsa. This will be maybe a little bit more complicated, but I'll come to that later, so I'll do the balsa first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a load of twisted wire that's going to branch out and allow me to branch out, and I'll be able to then stick it in, glue it in place, and then follow up with air dry clay, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the branches at the top and then bulk out the bottom and the tree roots with air dry clay. So I will get those twisted, and I'll bring you along for each stage as I get them. But first of all, I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to twist a bunch of branches for me to use in this way. So I'll bring you back when that's done. I've just been twisting and twisting for about an hour. You can't see them very well because of the background, but I now have a whole collection of trees. So what it'll let me do is actually pull this forwards. And what I'll do is I'll set them onto the blue so you can see them. So these are all going to be branches, and what these have, as you can see, is they all have the small single wire at the bottom, which I can then use to insert them into the soft balsa. And what I might end up doing after this is just using balsa for both trees, just because I think it's going to be slightly easier for me to actually put these armatures, as they call them, into that, rather than trying to work out a way of attaching them to the tube. And that is an hour's work. I think maybe I need twice that many for one wood tree, so maybe that's a quarter of the way through. And my hands are green, and yeah, it's hard work, but I'm very pleased to be getting there and getting this done. I put it off a week It's been nice. I've been sat watching some Rob Bennett videos while I've been doing it, and yeah, it's been a nice Saturday pre-lunch. I will probably carry on with this later on today, but I have chores to do now and other tasks. So that's my progress. I'll bring you back when I get a little bit more done. So there you are, short and sweet and indicative of just what a busy week I've had. However, at least I've got something done, and I still have 2 weeks left to complete the challenge, the Durin's doorway build, which I need to push on with. I'm going to be twisting and twisting and twisting more branches for those trees, and then I'll bring you along when I start to do the next step, which might even be green stuff. I'm not sure. I might go for green stuff on that. I'm still deciding. So yeah, thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. It's lovely to know that you're along for me with this journey, and yeah, I'm enjoying sharing it with you. And I'll close off this video as I always do by saying thank you very much for watching, and please stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.